Hey everybody, I'm going to do the quiz review for the website. Hopefully you guys understand just the most important part, which is that we use prime factorization to break two numbers down. We try to find out what numbers do they have that are the same. Those are going to make the greatest common factor. Then we're going to take the greatest common factor and multiply it by any numbers they have that are different, that they don't share, and that's going to make our lowest common multiple. But first, question 1. Prime factorization of 2 to the 4 times 7 is actually going to be the easiest question you guys have in your quiz. All you have to do is multiply it out. So you're going to change that 2 to the 4 to what it actually is. You're going to expand it out to standard form, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, to expanded form, times 7, and then you just smash that into your calculator. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. 16 times 7 is 112. And that's how you find the first answer. Not so bad. The second question is not going to be too big of a surprise. Write the prime factorization of 88. That means literally we just start with 88 at the top and we make our little prime factorization tree. And also it asks us to use exponents where possible. Remember, our prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. You probably won't need any other than that. I like to take out the lowest ones first and see if they go into 88 through division. 88 divided by 2, it's going to work. It's going to give me a whole number. 2 times 44. And if you struggled with that, use your calculator. Try 88 divided by 2. See if it gives you a number. If it's a decimal number, it won't work. So continuing again, will 2 go in there? It will. 2 times 22. Will 2 go in there? It will again. 2 times 11. And now all of those numbers are prime. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 11 is my prime factorization. But again, it asks us to use exponents. So I have 3 2's. So that's going to be 2 to the power of 3 times 11. That's my final answer. And if you laid it out like this, that's all I would need to see. Question 3 has a Venn diagram. And again, I just showed you this today, how to use these as 3, 27, and 5. And it said this Venn diagram, or use the Venn diagram to find the least number that has 42 and 70 as factors. 42, 70. So you should be able to tell kind of automatically that this side over here is 70. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 times 5 is 70. So those are the numbers that make up 70. You should be able to tell that kind of this whole circle is 42. 2 times 7 is 14, times 3 is 42. So you can see all of the numbers that are used to make up 42 and 70. They share everything in this area right here. Everything in here they share. They both use a 2 and a 7. That's not 27. It's a 2 and a 7. So that means we know that's where their common factor is, because those are the numbers they share. So greatest common factor is going to be 2 times 7, which is 14. Now, it didn't ask you to find the greatest common factor. It said find the least number that has 42 and 70 as factors. I need you to remember that when it asks you least number that has 42 and 70 as factors, it wants the lowest common multiple of 42 and 70. That's what it's looking for. If you can't remember that, you're going to be in trouble tomorrow. So 42 and 70, lowest common multiple. To find the lowest common multiple, all I have to do is take the greatest common factor, which is the numbers in here, and multiply those by the numbers that are not in there, the numbers that are not common, the prime factors that are not common. So lowest common multiple equals 2 times 7 times 3 times 5 equals 14 times 3 is 42 times 5 is 210. Now if you notice, 2 times 7 times 3 times 5 is literally just this whole line of numbers. That's why the Venn diagram works so well. Lowest common multiple is really just multiply this way if you've used a Venn diagram. So that's all you would have to do to find the least number that has 42 and 70 as factors. Question 4. Find the greatest common factor of 630 and 765. So that means I need to do the prime factorization for both, which is going to be a bit of work because those numbers are a little bigger than numbers you're used to. But it, again, follows the exact same procedure that you guys have seen a whole bunch of times already. So, starting with 630, I'm going to try the 2. 2 works, times, and let's say I didn't know what it was, I would just put it in my calculator and see what I get. It comes out as 315. Now that ends in 5. If it ends in 0 or 5, I know 5 is going to be able to come out of it. 5, and that's going to be times 63. Now just using my multiplication grid, I know that 9 times 7 is 63. So I'm going to try that one. Maybe you're going to do 3 times 21. But either way, you can pull several prime numbers out of there. 7 is prime, so now I just have to work on this 9. It's 3 times 3, and I'm done. I have 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 7 as my prime factorization for 630. Now I'm going to move over to 765. And again, it ends in 5, so I'm going to start with 5. Most of the time I start with 2, but if I see it end in a 5 or 0, I'm almost always going to start with 5. So then if you don't know what's going on, you just hit 765 divided by 5 in your calculator, and you should get 153. Now, 153. What number do you think might go into there? I'm going to try 3. I think 3 is going to work. Because 3 times 50 would be 150, so that makes me think 3 times 51 is going to do that. So that works. If you don't know, try 2. That doesn't work, try 3. See what you get. For 51, I know 2 is not going to work because it's an odd number, so I'll try 3. I had put it in my calculator. It comes out 3 times 17. All of these numbers are now prime. 3, 3, 5, and 17. 3 times 3 times 5 times 17. So now we have to find the greatest common factor. So what numbers do they have in common? There are 2 ways we can look at this. Okay, and I'm going to show you on the next slide. So remember, 630 had a prime factorization of 2 times 3 times 3 times 5, sorry it's messy, times 7, and 765 had a prime factorization of 3 times 3 times 5 times 17. So we have to look and think, what do they share? What do they have in common? And a lot of you are going to see that it has a 3 times 3 times 5 right there, and a 3 times 3 times 5 right there. And so that's what it has in common. What it doesn't have in common, what it doesn't share, is this 17, this 7, and this 2. So we have 2 ways of finding this the way we normally have. Everything in the square is what makes the greatest common factor, or rectangle in this case. So I know greatest common factor equals everything in the rectangle. So that's 3 times 3 times 5. 3 times 3 is 9. Times 5 is 45. So that's the greatest common factor that I hope you guys found. The other way you may want to organize it is like this, where we have our Venn diagrams. We're going to go with 2 big circles. And what numbers are there that they share? 3, 3, and 5. What numbers don't they share? This one, 630, has a 2 and a 7. And 765 has a 17. And greatest common factor is what is in here. So greatest common factor equals 3 times 3 times 5 equals 45. You do not have to show me both ways. You're more than welcome to show me both ways, but you do not need to. I just find that organizing it this way will make it easier for you to use your greatest common factor to find lowest common multiple a little bit later. So, last question. Find the least number that has factors 72 and 66. This is a lowest common multiple question. So we always are going to start with our prime factorization in this case. What numbers go into 72? I know a few different things that multiply to make 72, so I'm going to do 8 times 9. You maybe went in with 2 right away and did 2 times 36, but either way, you're going to end up with the same numbers. Now, 8 splits up into 2 times 4. 9 splits up into 3 times 3. Both those, that's done, but the 4 still has one more step, 2 times 2. So the prime factorization ends up being 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And for 66, I know right away that 6 times 11 works. Maybe you did 2 times 33. Either way, 6 times 11. 11 is prime. 6 is 3 times 2. So I know my prime factorization is 2 times 3 times 11. The very next step, as soon as we're done both times, really should be check your answers. 2 times 3 is 6, times 11 is 66. They match, so we're good. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24, times 3 is 72. So they match, so I know I'm in good shape right now. The next step after that, what matches? 2, 3, 11. 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. So we have a 2 and a 3 that match, and a 2 and a 3 that match. That's going to be our greatest common factor, is 2 times 3. But it's not asking us for greatest common factor. It's asking us for lowest common multiple. So let's circle everything else. Now our lowest common multiple is going to be our rectangle once times all of our circles. Now I know that looks kind of confusing. Don't put the rectangles in twice. Equals 2 times 3, that's our rectangle, times 2 times 2 times 3 times 11. So 2 times 2 times 3 were the circles over there, times 11 was the circle over here. Then you just multiply it all out. 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 3 is 72, times 11 is 792, I believe. And that's pretty much it for finding that. The only other thing I want to The last thing I want to show you is just how to use the Venn diagram to solve for this lowest common multiple. We're going to have 2 circles, hopefully. 2 circles. We have 72, and we have 66. And what numbers do they share? Well, they have a 2 and a 3 together. 2, 3. And they have, 66 has an extra 11. 72 has an extra 2, 2, and 3. Greatest common factor is the stuff in the middle. It's the stuff here in this area that is shared. 2 times 3 equals 6. But it's not asking you for the greatest common factor. It's asking you for lowest common multiple. Lowest common multiple is the greatest common factor times the non-shared prime factors. That sounds like a mouthful, but the easy way to remember it is lowest common multiple is just to multiply everything in your Venn diagram. If you've done your Venn diagram properly, just multiply everything in the line, and you're good. So lowest common multiple is going to be 2 times 2 times 3 times 2 times 3 times 11. Literally just multiply this whole line all the way through, because it's going to sort it out for me. Now, 2 times 2 is 4. Times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 3 is 72, times 11 is, am I on question, what am I looking at? Yeah. We look at that, and we end up with 792 again. So that's that. That's how you do it. Hopefully you guys feel that this helps you for your test, and good luck tomorrow.